It was 7 years ago, and we found ourselves in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by some of the highest peaks this side of the world. And we'd left home with one mission: to shoot an elk, unguided and on public land. Our chance for success, less than 1%. But we didn't care. The mission was not the goal. The mission was the journey. We both had full-time jobs, and we scrambled to find the time and money to be able to do this. But we made it a priority. And that journey, that was the mission, turned into the goal. We harvested a mighty 6x6 elk on public land, unguided, as a team, husband and wife. It was one of the best times of our lives. And now, after 7 years of adventure on the high seas, it's time for How to Live to return to these steep, majestic towers of rock and wood, to thrive in the basics and find the next epic adventure. Alright, we've got about 6 months to prepare. First things first, let's be thorough. We're going to be in grizzly country, way out there alone for weeks. We're going to need the right sidearm. We're going to need the most reliable, the most powerful, and the lightest. And hopefully by the end of this episode, we're going to know what is the best self-defense sidearm and caliber in grizzly country for lightweight backpacking. And for those of you that might say, you don't need a gun, just use your bear spray. Well, I think I'm going to listen to this guy, and not you.
Yeah, life sucks in bear country. I sprayed the shit out of her with bear spray. She got my head good. I don't know what's under my hat. My ear, my arm, pieces of stuff hanging out. And then my shoulder, it's ripped up. I think my arm's broke. Be safe out there. Bear spray doesn't always work.
And while we will have bear spray on our hips, it's smart to have a second option. And for you bear spray junkies, you do you, I do me. We'll see you guys out in the wilderness, and hopefully not decomposing in bear scat. And maybe you can ask Timothy Treadwell how he fared with a frying pan.
I love you, Cracker. I do love you. She's my friend.
Well, maybe you can't now, actually. So what sidearm might be best in grizzly country for protection? We're going to start with 7 options with a wide range of caliber and power. Now these are some of the most common. Comment below and tell me which one you'd prefer, but's missing from this lineup. And the first gun in caliber and probably most common is the 9mm. We're going to be shooting a compact Springfield Hellcat with 124 grain hollow point plus P Federal HSTs. We're going to be shooting into 10% FBI synthetic gel. And while this does not simulate hide, skin, flesh, and bone, it's an industry standard ballistic comparison medium. I know what you're thinking. You might say, isn't the 9mm a little small for a grizzly? Yeah, it is. But with extended mags, it holds up to 17 rounds. It's very compact and very light. And weight is a major criteria for this study, because in the vertical backcountry, ounces make pounds, but pounds make pain. Alright, first gel shot of the study. Let's see how she does. Well, isn't that cute? And the 9mm delivers an expansion cavity of about 14 inches long and 4 inches tall. And I can sense your ADHD kicking. Let's move on. And we'll shoot the 40 caliber, another common high capacity automatic. Interesting, a 12-inch by 3-inch wound channel and penetration to the next block, although the bullet ended up getting sucked back when the cavity collapsed. And next up is the very popular 45, a low capacity, big caliber automatic. And the 45 delivers a conical expansion channel of about 13 by 5 inches. And there's no big surprise with these common non-Magnum automatics. The 9mm and 40 penetrate further. They make longer, more narrow expansion chambers, while the 45 penetrates the least by only a little and makes a wider expansion chamber. And all 3 of these non-Magnum automatics have about the same energy, and all 3 expanded fully within the first inch or so. As we shift to Magnums here, you astute ones might say, wait a second, where's the 10mm? As it's become a pretty popular backcountry caliber for bear protection, with energy ballistics between the 357 Magnum and the 44. but in a high-capacity automatic frame. Yeah, it's a pretty good option, but I just don't have one. So we're going to move on to the Magnum options I do have and discuss the 10mm later. Well, the 5.7 isn't technically a Magnum. It's pretty potent, and it's actually the smallest caliber we're comparing. It's a little .22 caliber that's moving, and originally designed to be an armor-piercing pistol round. But ironically here, it only got 10 inches of penetration, the least out of all of them. It's not bear protection. Alright, moving on. 3, 2, 1. And for Magnums, we'll start with the very common 357. The penetration on the 357 is fantastic at 23 inches. It also holds 8 shots, so that's pretty good for a revolver. The wound channel was decent, but not great, although it did have an internal combustion on the wound channel collapse, which is called dieseling. It's to be expected with these Magnums and these higher speeds, and it does illustrate more destructive energy on target. Think about it. You're shot by a bullet. As it goes in you, it creates an expanding wound channel, and as that wound channel collapses, it creates high pressure, a dieseling effect where it ignites the air, creating a secondary explosion. This can also be a cyclic effect and happen many times through the wound channel with just that single shot. And this is why it can be so difficult to accurately compare calibers and how they affect a target in real life. And you'll see that every single Magnum caliber that we tested created this dieseling effect, while the other calibers did not. So how do you compensate for that in the comparison of lethality? And now for one of the most common bear protection calibers, the .44 Magnum.
Christ.
Yeah, that's not even the worst one yet. And the .44 Magnum doesn't disappoint. Unfortunately, I shot a little high, making the wound channel a little inconsistent, but it made a massive cavity and penetrated about 21 inches into the gel. And finally, last but not least, we have the notorious Smith & Wesson 500, whose energy more than doubles the .44 Magnum. And at 2,400 pounds of energy, it's more like getting hit by a .30-06 hunting rifle than a pistol. It's hard enough to quantify exact energy on target. And then this happens. 16-pound gel knocked off table? Check. And with 26 inches of gel penetration, it's clear. The Smith & Wesson 500 is the winner for devastating power. But is it the gun and caliber I would choose to use in bear country? And the answer is no. There's other variables that go into this, such as weight, accuracy, ease of use, ease of draw, speed of shooting, and capacity. Alright, let's take a look at the Magnums by the numbers and see what we got. The 357 comes in with a 24 by 5 inch wound cavity, while the .44 Magnum comes in with a 23 by 7.5 inch wound cavity, and the Mighty 500 comes in with a whopping 26 by 11 inch wound cavity. So it does appear here that all the Magnum rounds are more powerful than all of the automatic pistol rounds when looking at the cross-section of the wound channel. And again, please note we did not test the 10mm. That would be somewhere close to the 357 in ballistics. And yeah, for the nerds out there like me, because the wound channel is conical, this square inch reference number does not actually equal the square inches of the wound channel cross-section, but it does give us a good reference point, at least in my opinion. And lastly, before I make a decision, I want to check out the projectiles. Looks like a little foreshadowing for the next video, and that round certainly does not belong here. It looks like a spinning javelin Chinese star palm tree or something. Ballistics lethality on steroids. Comment below if you know what it is. And it doesn't take long in the vertical backcountry to realize that weight is everything. Ounces make pounds and pounds make pain. And to be honest, this is my number one criteria. Yes, I'd love to have the 50 S&W for bear protection, but it's just not practical when you're carrying 30 to 40 pounds of other gear. So what's the second most powerful, but lightest, and reliable? For me, it'd be something like the .44 Magnum revolver. It's something lightweight, compact, but still powerful. And my second choice would probably be the 10mm. But at the end of the day, do you really need 15 rounds if a bear's charging you? What are the chances you're going to get off all 15? It's really the first 1 to 3, maybe 4 rounds that count. And while the 10mm is a very powerful automatic pistol round, it's not the .44. And the one thing that bothers me the most with automatic pistols, especially for bear protection, is the fact that they don't fire if you're pushing the barrel into something. And nobody really knows or can predict how a close encounter with a bear is going to go down with a gun in the woods with camping gear, backpack gear on the side of a mountain. It might be hand-to-hand, it might be in close. You might be scrambling for your gun and grab it just in time to stuff it in the bear's neck or chest. You want it and need it to fire. You don't want it to come out of battery because you're, well, physically touching the bear with it. These are the things you don't have to worry about with a revolver. You can actually stuff it as hard as you want up into the bear's body, and it's going to fire. What if the person you're with is getting mauled? You may not want to stand back and shoot at the bear. And what's your opinion? Would you rather have 5 or 6 very powerful, reliable shots to include point blank? Or would you rather have 15 shots, a little bit less powerful, and not quite as reliable in a wrestling match? Comment below and let me know what you think. While doing research for this video, and considering the new advancements in 10mm ammunition, I decided to go out and grab one, and put it in this comparison. Have I been wrong this whole time, in assuming that the .44 Magnum revolver was the perfect backcountry bear defense gun? Well, we're about to find out. Top dogs head-to-head, .44 mag versus 10mm. And before we get to the Plus P penetrators from Underwood, let's set the baseline with some high-performance Hornady hollow points. Not bad. Already more penetration than the other automatics, with full expansion and a really good wound channel. And now the .44 Magnum and the 200 grain hollow point XTP. Wow, now that's a much bigger wound channel. And while penetration's about the same, there is clearly a huge difference on the amount of energy delivered on target. And now we move on to penetrator ammunition, specific for bear protection. Wow. And the slow motion gel footage really shows, while the penetration for these two calibers is very similar, the energy expended on target is quite a bit different. Both of these cartridges are Underwood's best for bear protection. They are the extreme penetrators, with a solid brass design that's fluted at the tip, which does get you close to the wound channel expansion of a hollow point, but with the penetration of an FMJ. And as you can see, even with these non-expanding penetrators, the .44 is clearly the winner when it comes to energy delivered to the target. You can even see a massive dieseling effect on the .44 that's absent on the 10mm. Alright, and finally let's see how the wound channel compares from the 10mm to the .357 and the .44. And sorry to the 10mm fanboys, my testing shows it's just under the .357, but with a score of 72, it's by far the best of the automatics. Again, it's important to note I did not find any dieseling effect with the 10mm, like I did with the other Magnums. Alright, so with all that research, let's get back to the original question. Which gun and caliber would I prefer for protection in grizzly country, while elk hunting and backpacking in the high country? And the answer's simple. I choose both. I'm going to carry the .44 Magnum, and my wife's going to carry the 10mm. I love the power of the .44 Magnum, and that you can go hand-to-hand combat with it and it'll still work. I'm not sure I'll be pistol whipping a bear, but it's nice to know you can shove it up into its chest and it's going to fire. Yes, I might have shot the .44 into the gel point blank. And the wound cavity? Yeah, there wouldn't be an organ left that didn't have the consistency of mashed potato. Don't try this at home. And finally, the .44 is really lightweight, which is essential in backcountry. However, with only 5 rounds fully loaded, it's severely limited in capacity, and that's a big deal. Now, if you add up the total potential energy in each firearm fully loaded, you'll find that the 10mm more than doubles the .44. So as hunters walking through the woods looking to protect ourselves, my wife will have twice my firepower without reloading. And although she's a retired detective and SWAT officer with plenty of firearms training, the .44 Magnum's recoil can be brutal in anybody's hands. So she'll have twice the firepower and be more accurate with the 10mm. It all sounds perfect. We'll take both. So after all that, you might ask, well, what would you take if you were going hunting alone? And the answer is, you'll just have to wait for another episode of How to Live. Hopefully it wasn't too much science for you, it was just enough entertainment. But I'd like to know, what gun would you carry in the outback in grizzly country? Comment below and tell us why. And be sure to stay tuned for more epic adventures from the mountains to the sea with How to Live As we prepare for a once-in-a-lifetime elk hunt in the
Thunder
Rockies,
chicken.
we fly to Thailand and explore some of the most unique landscape we've ever seen. And we finally finish and demo hull number 2 of the mighty Super Kraken, our very own high-speed luxury catamaran yacht.
Gonna move these mountains.